This spring I gave you a garden report, and now this is the fall, and so I'm going to give you a report on how things have stacked up for us throughout the summer and into the fall. Well, it's the day after Labor Day, and so we're getting into the fall, and a lot of the things in the garden are gone now, like the cantaloupe and the blueberries and the blackberries and some of that kind of stuff. So I just thought I'd share with you some of the things that have come out of the garden that we still have. And these are different varieties. Probably the most successful variety is this one that doesn't look as impressive right here. That's the Charleston Gray. But that's usually the sweetest and usually survives droughts better. And but they're all good. And our tomatoes, I just picked the last of the tomatoes yesterday. But these have been very, very good. And these are Cherokee purple tomatoes and some, I can't remember what kind of yellow tomatoes these are. But anyway, they've been good, and Vicky's been canning them and doing things like that. And so anyway, this is what Vicky has done with some of the tomatoes that we have. She's made spaghetti sauce, and she's made other kinds of things. Lots of tomatoes she's put up. And with the beets that have come out of the garden, she's pickled some of them, and I've frozen some of them. As a matter of fact, yeah, I put these frozen beets, which I have blanched, I put them into my smoothies in the morning. And so along with pickling beets, we also have so many blueberries, and she made some blueberry jam that is just really good. And so that's kind of fun. We have some muscadines that I went and picked yesterday, and they're not really ready until they get kind of soft to squeeze, and when they turn black, that's when they're the sweetest. We also have something I tried new this year, and this is the Okinawan sweet potato. This is just a little one. I harvested it yesterday. They're really not ready. I had a couple of really big ones, gave them away, gave one to my barber this morning, and so I'm anxious to try it. I haven't even tried these. And these are blue potatoes. Tried these. These are great. They were ready to go earlier in the spring, and I've put them in storage under the house. And this is just a regular sweet potato, and the Vardaman type that is supposed to be very, very good. And it was from last year, and it came up again this year as a volunteer. And then we have the butternut squash, which is a squash that will last all winter long in storage. And one of my favorites is the spaghetti squash. And I just love those. And also the red okra. This was new. Vicky planted this, and I love these. You can just eat them raw, which I do. I stand out there in the okra patch and just pull them off and eat them raw. I had no idea you could eat them raw. And these are some of the figs that we have dried, dehydrated, and had a lot of figs, and we just kept putting them up. We'd put them in our refrigerator until we get enough to start to do something with them and process them, and they're almost all gone now. And of course the blueberries, we have had tons and tons of blueberries. Our freezer is just filled with blueberries. And Vicky can make blueberry syrup or blueberry jam, or I just freeze them and put them into my smoothies. And here's the Cherokee purple again. And what I do is I try to save seeds, try to make sure that the seeds that we get are those that can reproduce the same kind of thing, heirlooms, each year. And they will if you don't grow them next to something else where they cross-pollinate. And here's the yellow tomato, and I'm just in the process now of getting the seeds prepared, separating them from the meat of the tomato, and I will soak them for a couple of days, then I'll lay them out and dry them. And spaghetti squash seeds. These are the Charleston Gray seeds. These are some of the black diamond seeds. And so it's just been kind of fun to have a garden and put things up. And the biggest challenge with a garden to me is not planting it so much as when it comes harvest time, processing all this and putting it up. And that takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort. Okay, so much for this. Ever wonder why they call this a spaghetti squash? I like this stuff. This came out of our garden. It's easy to steam the stuff and enjoy it. But Vicky makes excellent spaghetti sauce, and when you put it over this, I really like that. But I also like to eat this cold with some special milk that I make out of cashews, and then I add some pumpkin pie spice to it, and then add some syrup, some maple syrup. And it tastes really good that way. I like to eat it cold that way. Anyway, costs a lot of money in the store, but if you got room, it's easy to grow. I really like the red okra that Vicky planted this year. And what I didn't know about okra and red okra is that it's yummy if you like okra, just eating it raw. It is really good. I was reluctant at first, but when I saw my buddy Mike eat some of my okra raw, I thought I'd get brave and try some. Now, I go out there and I stand in the patch and I just pull it off and eat it all the time. It's really, really good. We've been canning, or my wife has been canning, tomatoes out of our garden for the past month. We have plenty now, and we still have tomatoes coming in. But these are Cherokee purple tomatoes, and they're really richly deep red when you cut them open, and taste pretty good. And then the yellow tomatoes, low acid, few seeds, delicious on sandwiches as well. Well, I had all these good things ready to eat, so I thought I'd go ahead and cook them up and enjoy them. But the red okra turns green when you steam it. And of course we have these yellow tomatoes and the Cherokee purple tomatoes and the Okinawan sweet potatoes. And then we have the purple potatoes. And this is really good and scrumptious stuff to me. I've just learned to really like this kind of stuff. Yesterday I also made some homemade bread out of whole wheat and put some of Vicky's homemade blueberry jam on it. So this ought to be a very interesting meal for me. I'm really looking forward to it. So yesterday was Labor Day, and I just thought I'd show you a couple of persimmons that have come off the tree. I've picked these early. The one on the left, I refer to him as an itchy persimmon. Hachia, I think is how you pronounce it, but they're coming on, and it'll be another couple of months before they're ready. But the one on my left, the itchy, it has to get completely red and feel like a sack of water, or a balloon filled with water. That's what it feels like when it's totally ripe and ready to eat, and so sweet and so delicious. And the one on my right here is a fuyu persimmon. These are Japanese or Oriental persimmons. And the one that I'm holding right here, when it starts to turn orange, you can start to eat it. The one on the left is astringent, means that it'll make you pucker and not taste good. The one on the right, when they start turning orange, you can start to eat them now. They're like a crisp apple. But if you let this one go, this fuyu persimmon will be really delicious. It will get softer and softer. It'll get to the point where it's not hard and crisp, but it'll be juicy and it'll drip. And then it'll start turning into something more like a jelly substance, where you can get to the point where you can eat it with a spoon. But all the way through that whole process for maybe a month and a half or two, this persimmon is edible and very delicious. It's one of my favorite fruits now. And so I just thought I'd share those with you, since I've been sharing other things with you as well. And it's just fun to have a garden and to be able to put things up, process things, and to have delicious foods. By the way, all of our garden, everything that we grow is totally organic. No pesticides, no fertilizers in anything we use. And we still have very successful crops. I think it's because we have the mulch garden, the mulch type garden that I have been growing now for the last couple of years. But it produces all these fruits and veggies without any of that harsh stuff. Yay! About a month ago I planted this kale, because I want to have kale throughout the winter. And I planted kale over here as well. Kale, I have it in my smoothies all the time. It's really a nutritious veggie. And I also have planted a little bit of spinach right here. And I'm doing something I've never done before. Our spring crop of zucchini turned out pretty good, but it only lasted a couple of weeks before the worms got it. I decided to plant a couple weeks ago, well actually about a month ago, and so we have zucchini coming up there. And we can have little zucchinis right there as well. Just seeing if I can grow this in the fall. And after a successful potato crop this past spring, planted in March and then harvested in about June, and I decided I think I'll start off, and it was middle of July. I thought I'll go ahead and start and plant some of these potatoes and see if they'll come up. And so I'm waiting to see, this is an experiment, whether or not these potatoes, and it's still pretty hot, pretty warm out, whether they'll be able to produce for me, having planted when I did in the middle of the summer. Usually you want to plant potatoes about February here in this area. We'll see how it goes. So I just wanted to say a word about my gardening style. I had truckloads of mulch come in and dropped over the last couple of years, and I make it so that it's very thick. I spread it out and it's maybe about a foot thick, and then when I go to plant, I take a pitchfork and I make rows in this mulch. And I never plant directly into the mulch. I always plant into the dirt under the mulch, and then I'll bring the mulch back up to the plants. You know, and that way I haven't had to water all summer long. And it's been a hot summer. And so that's kind of the way that works. And I just wanted to show you what happens. Now, I planted these Okinawan sweet potato slips late, but nonetheless, and I had to water them because they were little tiny slips. I had to water them each day until they got going. Other than that, I haven't watered anything in my garden. But I want to show you what happens to this mulch on top. You can see I don't have much of a weed problem, right? I mean, no weed problem really. Oh, I'll come along and pull some weeds from time to time. But I want you to see why it is that my plants do so well. I mean, this is where I planted in a mulch type like that. That was what was covering the ground. And then I dug into the earth and got to the soil. And this right here is not the soil that I dug into. I can't see my own hand in this video here, but this was all mulch. Can you see how it's turning into good, rich soil? And that is one of the reasons why I think that I have such a good garden. Never have to water, don't have to weed. And so what'll happen is the mulch will get to the point where it'll disintegrate to the point where I have to have people come in and bring in more mulch and lay down mulch, so that in the wintertime, when it's wet and stuff like that here in South Carolina, we can, well, have time to let it stand for a while and get better. Okay, so now you know the secrets of my success, why we have an organic garden without spraying, without pesticides, insecticides, without fertilizers, and without weeding, without watering. I mean, you can just look around and see that I don't have a weed problem. The watermelons that were over here, this whole watermelon patch right here, I didn't plant. They came up by themselves. And now you can't see it now, but I took about 4, 5, 6 40-pound watermelons or heavier out of this little area right here, and they were just volunteers coming up, so I just let them go. All right, so much for my fall report.